Welcome to FilmProv, where everything is made up and my opinions don't matter. One of the main constants of growing up in the United States is that every kid has their one Disney movie that's their favorite. Whether it's one of the princess movies, Robin Hood, Jungle Book, Aladdin, Lion King. There's even some weirdos out there who were shown Hunchback as a young kid.
Minister Frollo, the gypsy has escaped.
Get the fuck out of my room! I'm playing Minecraft!
Me, growing up, mine was Peter Pan. I mean, what's not to like about Peter Pan? There's pirates, sword fights, flying, living in a cool treehouse hideout with a bunch of other kids with no girls and no parents. You get to have adventures, and of course, a giant crocodile. Peter Pan is an interesting Disney movie in that it's not made up whole cloth, but it's also not based on a centuries-old fairy tale. It's actually just based on a play that was then turned into a novel by J.M. Barrie in 1904. Now, in the 100 years and change since, Peter Pan has been adapted several times in several iconic iterations. Now lately, I've just kind of had a micro-obsession comparing all the different major adaptations, and instead of trying to pick one that I think is the best or try and compare them all, I've decided that the best way to compare them all, in my opinion, is to hold an award ceremony. That's right, I'm going to be taking all the major components of the Peter Pan story and decide which version has the best adaptations of each individual aspect. Now, these 6 versions I'm going to be looking at are the classic Disney version from 1953, Peter Pan, the 1954 Mary Martin musical, which was filmed and televised several times, and was available for a long time on VHS. Now you guys might be confused as to why this one is considered, but the musical is a very prominent version of the story that's been quite prolific over the last century.
I've got a crow. I'm just the cleverest fella 'twas ever my fortune to know. I taught a trick to my shadow to stick to the tip of my toe.
And for me personally, I had the VHS growing up, so this was just one of the versions I grew up with. I'm also going to be looking at 1991's Hook, a cult classic that I particularly love. I'm going to be looking at the 2003 Peter Pan live-action film directed by P.J. Hogan. I'm going to be looking at the Disney sequel, Return to Neverland, which many people think is a direct-to-video sequel, but actually did get a theatrical release. And finally, I'm going to be looking at 2023's Peter Pan and Wendy, the semi-live-action remake, but also re-adaptation of the book by Disney that came out on Disney Plus earlier this year. I am not going to be looking at Pan from 2015, because I don't want to and you can't make me. I'm also not going to be looking at the Peter Pan Live that came out, a few years ago, starring Christopher Walken as Hook for 2 reasons. One, it's literally just a production of the same musical as 1954, so there's no real point in comparing the two. Also, it's not gonna win anything. Let's be real.
Peter Pan has found a mother. Oh, yeah.
So that is 6 versions I'm going to be looking at. Some of them are sequels, some of them are just direct adaptations, but I think 6 is a good sample size to pull from. And I'm just going to tell you guys right now, some of these are not going to be winning much at all. There is definitely going to be a few frontrunners that are going to win most of the awards, but hey, I want a decent sample size, so that's what we get. And welcome to the first annual FilmProv Peter Pan Awards. Here's your host, FilmProv. Alright, the first award is going to be for Best Crocodile. Now maybe this is just me because I love crocodiles. Crocodiles are freaking awesome, one of my favorite animals in the world. But the crocodile's always been one of my favorite aspects of Peter Pan. In the story, Peter and Captain Hook represent 2 sides of the conflict that Wendy faces as she nears adolescence. If Peter Pan represents childhood, he's carefree, he's fun-loving, he's energetic, he enjoys life, but is also short-sighted, immature, arrogant, forgetful, incapable, or even unwilling to learn or grow as a person, Captain Hook represents everything that a child fears about adulthood. He's bitter, he's alone, he's angry, he's miserable, he's incapable of having fun. And above all, he lives in fear of a literal ticking clock that brings with it certain death. That's right, the crocodile is literally a manifestation of death itself. And I don't mean it metaphorically or rhetorically or poetically or theoretically or in any other fancy way. He's death. Straight up. Now, we can automatically discount Return to Neverland because for reasons that mystify me, the crocodile is not included. Instead, we get an octopus that doesn't hit the same, so Return to Neverland is out. As much as I love it, Hook is also going to be discounted because for most of the movie, the crocodile is dead and is stuffed and mounted in a giant clock tower. Now, in Hook's defense, the crocodile does come in at the very end and is reanimated for unknown reasons.
You know, it was really unclear.
I will also not be including the Mary Martin Peter Pan musical because the crocodile is just a guy in a costume crawling around on stage and has a total of about 30 seconds of screen time. The 2003 Peter Pan has a really cool design. This is our first CGI crocodile. It's this big, terrifying monster. However, it not only doesn't feature in very many scenes, but in the scenes it's in, it barely has any screen time. We see it once at the Black Castle, where it just shows up, attacks Hook, and then we leave, and then it shows up at the very end to eat Hook, and that's about it. Peter Pan and Wendy, the crocodile has a really cool design. I like the long, narrow jaws like some species of crocodile, and I like the fact that it's full of harpoons sticking up out of its hide as if Hook had spent several years trying to kill it. However, the problem is that we don't see it again. That is the only scene at which it features. So by process of elimination, that leaves the 1953 Disney Peter Pan as the best crocodile. In fact, this is the only one that has a name. His name is TikTok.
I'll be Tracer. I'm already Tracer.
Not that TikTok. This crocodile has a fun personality. It has a decent amount of screen time. We get a little introduction in the beginning when we first meet Hook. We get him in the Skull Rock scene in which he has an extended sequence of slapstick humor. We see him hanging around just to remind us that he is there a little bit later, and then we finally see him at the end. What's more, the scenes that we get, again, the slapstick is really funny. They give it a decent amount of screen time of just Hook trying to avoid getting eaten by the crocodile, and it's really fun. As a kid, I really loved it, and even as an adult, I still find it a lot of fun. And what's more, they gave the crocodile his own musical theme, and it kind of goes hard. So Best Crocodile goes to Peter Pan 1953. Next up we have Best Pirates. Hook's crew might just seem like a large assortment of faceless and nameless pirates, but many adaptations actually decide to give the pirates a fair bit of personality and have a little bit of fun with them. Peter Pan and Wendy gives them a couple surprising songs, kind of sea shanties as if they're, pirates who just enjoy a good musical number. Hook, of course, has a ton of fun with just the huge army of pirates eventually fighting the huge army of Lost Boys. In particular, the Boo Box and that one pirate that every trivia fan will tell you is played by Glenn Close.
The Boo Box.
The 1953 Disney Peter Pan, of course, has the pirates as cartoony characters, but I gotta give it to Peter Pan 2003. Mostly just because they're fun, they're funny. There's a lot of good jokes with them about how much they love stories and how just silly they are, despite being probably the most realistic looking pirates and just in terms of how gross and grimy they are. Plus, several of them have actual names, like Noodler with his hands
Done backwards.
Next award, we're gonna stick with the pirates and do Best Mr. Smee. Smee gets his own category because he's very distinct as Captain Hook's sort of sidekick. Of course, the Disney version has a lot of fun with him, as surprisingly does the Mary Martin musical, in which there's sort of a running gag where Smee says really dumb things and Hook then clocks him on the head with his hook. Peter Pan and Wendy, while they do a good job at casting Jim Gaffigan as Smee, I gotta say they lose out because they just kind of waste him. He doesn't really have any moments to shine, save for maybe the scene with the rules, but that's just, I don't know, the humor just isn't there. I gotta give it to Hook, where Smee is played by the late, great Bob Hoskins. Not only does Hoskins have a ton of fun with the role, and the movie has a lot of fun with him, but there's a lot of just great scenes with just him and Hook, in which they really play off each other well, Smee's given a lot of great lines, and then of course he's given a wonderful scene at the end where he just decides to make off with all the money. Best Smee goes to Hook. Alright, for the next award, I'm gonna go Best John and Michael Darling. Let's be honest. Of the three Darling children, the only really important one to the story is Wendy. However, that doesn't mean John and Michael can't be memorable characters of their own. The problem is that most versions choose not to do that. This one was kind of hard because so many of these versions just kind of forget to include them in the story or forget to give them anything to do. The Mary Martin Peter Pan, they might as well just not be there. Same with Peter Pan and Wendy. Peter Pan 2003 starts to have an idea of something to do with at least John, where they give him kind of a love interest with Tiger Lily, but really I gotta hand it to Disney. Disney's 1953 version of Peter Pan was the only version I saw that really gave them characters. Particularly John, where they made him just clearly this little kid who tries so hard to act like a proper gentleman and an educated young man. I swear this all just comes down from him wearing a top hat and having glasses, but it's a lot of fun. And there's a running joke with him and Michael, where John will say something very dignified with a lot of expert vocabulary for a kid, and then Michael will unknowingly say the same thing, just with layman speech.
Oh, I should like very much to cross swords with some real buccaneers. Yes, and fight pirates, too.
Plus, Michael puts a cannonball in his bear and drops it on a pirate's head, surely killing him. That's based as fuck. I gotta give it to the Disney version. Alright, next we're doing Best Tinkerbell. And I'm just gonna say, the Mary Martin Peter Pan musical really is kinda disadvantaged here because at the time, Tinkerbell was played by a flashlight and a bell.
Well, I'm very sorry.
And Tinkerbell is a character that a lot of adaptations I was surprised to find missed the point entirely. Namely, Peter Pan and Wendy and Hook both had Tinkerbell as kind of a sweetheart, like kind of just a nice little fairy. I think Peter Pan and Wendy especially was tainted by all the 2010s CGI direct-to-video Disney fairy movies where they just painted Tinkerbell as a protagonist. Tinkerbell in the original story was a jealous, conniving bitch. She clearly was very protective of Peter and wanted him all to herself, and it's canon that fairies are so small they only have room in their bodies for one emotion at a time. So when Tink gets jealous, she gets all the way jealous. Peter Pan and Wendy, disqualified just because she's too nice, doesn't really do anything in the story, and also is too dark. Not in that way. I mean, literally look at the effect they have on Tinkerbell. Tinkerbell should be glowing. That glow is so vital to the fairies and pixies of Neverland that in the book, play, and several of the adaptations, a fairy dying is literally referred to as their light going out. So does that mean this Tinkerbell is just a zombie? Is she dead? Is this the undead fairy? She was originally played on stage by a flashlight. Tinkerbell needs to be a bright source of golden light, and this, it just looks like crap, which is a shame because the actress seems to be a good choice for the role. In Return to Neverland, Tink sorta has that same energy as she does in the original Disney movie, but she spends most of the movie on death's door, so you don't really see too much of her. The 2003 version, they do a pretty good job of making Tink a murderous little minx. I mean, she's literally the one who tries to have Wendy killed by the Lost Boys. However, something about the way the actress is directed or the way the sound effect, she's a bit too much for me. At least in live action, she's more cartoony than the cartoon version. And the cartoon version, I gotta say, is the winner. 1953 Disney version has the best Tink, far and away. She's bratty, she's petty, she's jealous, she's conniving, she's murderous, she's sassy, and she has a good design.
Oh my god, step bro, I'm stuck.
Alright, next up we got The Lost Boys. Now maybe it's because I myself was a young boy who had a lot of friends, but I love movies and stories that feature just a gang of kids, a gang of boys, just screwing around, having fun, fighting, bickering, having fun banter with each other, and that's really the kind of itch that gets scratched by The Lost Boys. Peter Pan and Wendy, I gotta say, The Lost Boys just have no purpose. They have absolutely no presence, no role in the story. It's cool, I guess, that they have girls in The Lost Boys. I mean, sure, but they do absolutely nothing with them. Both Peter Pan 1953 and Return to Neverland, the Disney version of The Lost Boys, they're a lot of fun. They bicker and fight a lot, and you really like that. However, they don't have much personality, I'd say. Peter Pan 2003, very little individual personalities with them. They have some nice lines, very nice chemistry amongst the boys, but that's about it. Now, hands down, far and away, the best Lost Boys is Hook. They're integral to Peter's arc and journey as a character. They have a lot of fun different personalities between the little ones, Thud and Don't Ask and Pockets. They essentially capture the essence of what I love in the Lost Boys. And, let's be honest, they have Rufio. If Dante Bosco wearing leather and a giant red mohawk swinging around a sword fighting Dustin Hoffman is not your version of fun, I don't know what is. Hook wins it because not only does it have everything that makes the Lost Boys great in the original story, but it adds and expands on it. Plus, man, that treehouse hideout just looked like the coolest place as a kid, and I wanted to live there so badly. Alright, now before we get to our three main characters, I want to address the elephant in the room. Whenever someone brings up Peter Pan, especially the Disney version, there's one glaring thing people think of that really makes it hard to enjoy the story, and that is, I'm not going to call them Native Americans, because technically they're native to Neverland, not the Americas, and otherwise, in the stories they either refer to them as people from the Indian subcontinent, which they're not, or by the Washington football team, and I'm just not going to say that. Now, instead of doing just a best tribe or best tiger lily, I'm going to do an award for worst handling. Now, it was pretty hard to pick. I gotta say second place goes to the Mary Martin musical because they have a bunch of white people dressed in pajamas dancing around doing stereotypical Native American dances with face paint and feathers, and Tiger Lily is played by a blonde woman, and they have an entire song called Ugga Wug. However, while that's bad, it can hold a candle to the one that you all know is gonna be the winner, or should I say loser, and that is Disney's Peter Pan 1953. Let's be honest, not only is every single member of the tribe, save for Tiger Lily, drawn and designed like a racist caricature, and given just straight up red skin, not like tan or brown, but like straight up scarlet red skin, but they also have a song called What Makes the Red Man Red, that has verses titled, What Makes the Red Man Red? Why Does He Ask You How? And When Did He First Say Ugh? Yeah, there's really no defending this at all. It's a terrible product of its time, and it really drags down what otherwise is a pretty good adaptation of the story, and for many kids was the definitive Peter Pan. I'd be very interested to see a modern version of Peter Pan that features actual culturally accurate depictions of this tribe with consultation or even directly written by members of native communities. I certainly don't want to see Rooney Mara as Tiger Lily. If any of you guys are members of Native American tribes and have opinions on this, feel free to let me know. I want to learn more, I really do. Alright, the big three characters. Our main three are two protagonists and our antagonist. I'm going to start with Best Wendy, and Wendy is kind of a hard character to judge because all of her portrayals are some level of decent, with the exception of the Mary Martin version, in which Wendy really doesn't do anything, has zero presence at all. Return to Neverland is also exempt because Wendy barely features. She's just a mother in the beginning, and then we see her at the end, and that's it. She's all grown up. The story is about Jane, her daughter. Hook has a really good adaptation of Wendy. However, it's a little different because it's Wendy as an old woman. She's a great grandma now, played by Maggie Smith, wearing such good old age makeup that for most of my life I thought she just looked old in 1991 and has looked old ever since. But because she's so different from traditional Wendy and from the Wendy in the rest of these versions, it's kind of hard to compare, so I really gotta just let her do her own thing and look at the others. Peter Pan and Wendy, you'd think, would feature Wendy as a main character, considering her name is in the title, and she also has several what I'll call hero moments, but the movie really focuses more on just Peter and Hook and their relationship, and Wendy's kind of forgotten. Wendy essentially gets the same treatment as the Wasp does in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, in which she's in the title, but not much of the movie. Also, I don't know, in the beginning, her characterization seems just kind of muddled and confused, where she's kind of moody, kind of mean to her brothers, she throws them under the bus, but also she's supposed to still be childish and not wanting to grow up, and it's confused. Peter Pan 1953, I'd say, is just the perfect good Wendy. She has strong writing, good characterization, prominent role in the film, a decent arc. However, I have to give it to 2003's Peter Pan. The live-action movie just really doubles down and focuses on the relationship of Peter and Wendy's confliction with growing up, and her feelings towards Peter and her responsibilities to her brother and her family, and missing her mother. Wendy really is the main character of this movie, and it really is her story. She is the character that should be the protagonist, that should be the main character. She's the one who goes through the arc. Peter isn't really the hero. He's like Jack Sparrow, where he certainly attracts a lot of attention and steals most of the scenes he's in, but he's really there to service the arc and the story of the main character. Peter is the representation of the fear of growing up, the desire to want to be a child. And when Wendy sees Peter's existence and all the problems with it, as they call it, the riddle of his being, it helps her learn that growing up is not all a bad thing. And this is something that is perfectly exemplified in the 2003 version that is kind of missing from the Disney version. So best Wendy, Peter Pan 2003. Now for the fun award. While the crocodile is my favorite character by virtue of being a crocodile, Hook is my favorite actual character. Captain Hook is just so fun in almost every version he's in. And this was a very hard time picking which was my favorite. Captain James Hook as a character has several key elements that I think need to be included. Some versions, they emphasize one over the other. The best one captures all of them. Captain Hook is a gentleman. He's educated, he's cultured. He's very insistent on displaying good form, and he's very critical of bad form. He's also a man that, while he'll certainly exploit loopholes, is eager to make deals and will actually keep up his word. He's also very menacing, intimidating. This is a man whose sole goal in life is to kill a child, and he will kill countless other children to accomplish that goal. He's ruthless and murderous and will kill any member of his crew in order to get his way, or even just to vent his anger. He's also a comedic character. Between his bumbling dynamic with Smee, to the fact that he's terrified by a giant reptile to the point where even the ticking of a clock will send him into fits. And let's be honest, Captain Hook needs to be some level of gay.
Mrs. Hook's little baby boy.
Now, both animated Disney versions from 1953 and Return to Neverland perfectly emphasize what I say the clown aspects of Hook. The 2003 movie features a very menacing Hook. He's very ruthless and intimidating. He's a bit scary. Peter Pan and Wendy, doesn't really feature a good representation of any kind of Hook. They kind of do their own thing, which I'm not the biggest fan of. Mary Martin Peter Pan, he's gay as shit.
Inspire me! Play, you dogs! What tempo, Captain? Tempo. A tango.
However, the one version that features all of these traits and more is the movie Hook. Big surprise, the movie that's named after him has the best Captain Hook. Dustin Hoffman just chews the scenery in every single scene he's in. He's melodramatic.
Don't try to stop me, Smee.
Oh, not again.
He's ruthless and hateful.
I hate Peter Pan.
He's funny.
How did you ever manage to fit into those smashing tights again, Peter?
And of course, gay as shit.
Where's the carpet, Smee?
Oh, sorry.
Not to mention, he just has a great intro. Such build-up as the whole pirate village bands together chanting his name, following just his metal hook as it goes towards his cabin. We see him attach it with just these sparks, and then we see his backside, he turns, and boom. Captain Hook. He's hyped up throughout the movie as just this ominous, terrifying force.
Have to say Maggie, have to say Hook. Okay, he's back.
Alright, well, time for the one you've all been waiting for, unless you're cool and prefer Hook. Best Peter Pan. This one I had to look deep into my soul. I had to try and figure out what is the essence of Peter Pan, and who best displays it. Peter Pan and Wendy does not win this award. I know the kid who plays Peter is giving it his all, however, he is given absolutely no direction. They really try to give him that lighthearted, quippy fun that Peter has, but it's just, there's no energy. It's just lifeless. Between the acting, the directing, the pacing, the editing, it's just so bland.
All my bad form I learned from you.
Don't flatter yourself. You've always been rotten.
Hook honestly should get its own honorary award because its Peter Pan is Robin Williams, which is phenomenal in its own right and is one of my favorite Robin Williams performances. However, much like its version of Wendy, it's kind of its own thing and it's hard to compare to the others. So I'll just say, go watch Hook on your own, enjoy the Robin Williams, you're gonna have a good time.
Rufio, if I'm a maggot burger, why don't you just eat me? You two-toned, zebra-headed, slime-coated, pimple-farming, paramecium brain, munching on your own mucus, suffering from Peter Pan envy!
What's a paramecium brain?
I'll tell you what a paramecium is. That's a paramecium. It's a one-celled critter with no brain that can't fly. Don't mess with me, man. I'm a lawyer!
As for the best Peter Pan, I was tempted to give it to the 1953 Disney version. Bobby Driscoll was just iconic in that role, and he really defined who that character was for so many people. But I gotta give it to Peter Pan 2003. Jeremy Sumpter was perfectly cast. He looked the part, he acted the part, and he was really directed super well. This is really the only one of these movies to really dive into, again, to quote the story itself, the riddle of his existence. Peter Pan is a character who's essentially a living paradox. He goes on adventure after adventure, he experiences so many things, but because he refuses to grow up, he will never change, he will never learn. He will flee at the earliest sight of maturing or growing or developing or learning as a person.
But I will not grow up. You cannot make me. I'll banish you like Tinkerbell.
I will not be banished!
Go home. Go home and grow up.
And take your feelings with you. Peter!
The second he thinks he might be starting to develop feelings for Wendy, he immediately retreats, he runs, he doubles down on being a child.
You can't catch me and make me a man.
Peter.
I want always to be a boy and have fun.
He's full of himself, he's arrogant, he's cocky, he's a bit of a jerk sometimes.
I know what you are!
I am the best there ever was!
And once more, he is just a little shit around Captain Hook. He's essentially child Deadpool.
If I were you, I'd give up!
If you were me, I'd be ugly.
And of all the movies, the 2003 movie is my absolute favorite to watch his scenes with Hook, in which he just flies around like it's nothing, quipping and taunting the pirates, just driving Hook and his crew absolutely insane.
Not bad for an old man!
Well, there you have it. Those are all of my awards that I have to give today. Some won more than others, but I think I gave a fair shake to each version. And as long as you know that some of these are very dated products of their time, I recommend you check pretty much all these out on your own. And I want to know down below, what's your favorite version of Peter Pan? Or which of these awards would you give to someone else? I legitimately know several of these were very close calls, and I would love to hear what people have to say. Either way, I hope in the next 10-15 years we get another cool version of the story that perfectly captures a lot of these elements. But until then, I have some really great versions. With that out of the way, I've been FilmProv. To live would be an awfully big adventure, and don't feed the plants.